The 45 days of early voting for the April 21st special election on the bill that would give the Virginia General Assembly permission to temporarily suspend the Virginia Constitution and allow them to redraw Virginia's congressional districts has begun. Virginia's voters have been hit with so much different information, confusion could almost feel intentional. So we're going to break down what's actually happening. Are there court cases going on that are trying to hold the Virginia General Assembly to the laws of the Commonwealth? Yes. Have they stopped the voting process? No. Tim Anderson has been leading this charge to hold the Virginia General Assembly accountable to their own laws, specifically the one that requires 90 days' notice of a constitutional amendment be posted before voting can begin. However, the rulings in this case have not gone his way, and press headlines have made it seem like the courts have sided with the redistrictors. However, Tim Anderson released this point regarding the most recent hearings in Daswell.
Update as to what happened in Lynchburg today. So, make a long story short, the Attorney General threw everything they could at us on procedure and venue and delay and judicial restraint, and all that got denied. However, the court found that it lacked subject matter jurisdiction to hear the case, basically finding that a constitutional amendment process isn't ripe for being challenged until after the election occurs. Now, that's a double-edged sword for us. It didn't dismiss any of the merits, and it left open the ability for anybody to challenge this election, but it has to be challenged after the election occurs. And that seems to be what the Supreme Court is signaling, and that's where this judge is also going, Judge Yates in Lynchburg, is that, hey, there may be legitimate constitutional questions here, legitimate issues that have to be resolved, but they can't be resolved until after the election occurs.
The Virginia Supreme Court's ruling in this is that they will not make a determination until after all the votes have been cast, and that voting must proceed because in their ruling there cannot be a plaintiff if someone has not been harmed, which cannot be determined until after the votes have been cast. One question that hasn't been answered is if the courts will restrain the State Board of Elections from tabulating or at least releasing these votes totals as so to not influence the judge's ruling one way or another. Regardless of what is happening in the courts, voting will go on until April 21st, and it's imperative that Virginians know what they're voting for or against. The referendum itself is written in such a way as to be indicative of a heavily partisan General Assembly. Here's the text of that. Should the Constitution of Virginia be amended to allow the General Assembly to temporarily adopt new congressional districts to restore fairness in the upcoming elections while ensuring Virginia's standard redistricting process resumes for all future redistricting after the 2030 census? The word fairness is concerning to many in this case because Virginians are in favor of being fair, so there is a concern that anyone seeing this language would be inclined to vote yes, just out of the idea of promoting fairness. However, in previous postings here, we've laid out how incredibly unfair these districts are, including to many in the Black community. Why, in this next graphic, you'll see that 5 separate congressional districts begin in Fairfax County alone. Many Virginians that I've spoken to are frustrated because it seems that those who want to pass this referendum and give the General Assembly permission to temporarily suspend the Virginia Constitution are very well funded, and those who oppose the plan are not. This frustration is actually part of the campaign. A political action committee comes in with lots of money, buys lots of TV and digital advertisements, and it makes it seem like the opponents are alone in a forest. In this case, the Political Action Committee is led by former U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder, who has been going around the country trying to change districting laws. The efforts of those who oppose the redistricting are marshaling support through social media and earned media appearances because they have the support of folks like the former Governor George Allen and former Senator Chap Peterson, who are going across the Commonwealth holding events and reminding people that it was just 5 years ago when Virginians almost unanimously supported this plan. A recent poll from Roanoke College shows that most Virginians remember that 62% in their poll say they want the Constitution to stay the way it is. That's about the same as the election 5 years ago, when 65% of Virginians supported securing districting away from politicians. There's another concern within this push. Once the Constitution has been suspended, how will this impact the 2027 and 2029 General Assembly districts, as well as the 2028 and 2030 congressional elections? The point has been avoided by supporters of the referendum while they say out loud that this is specifically to rein in the Trump administration. The bigger question is, once this precedent has been set, that exigent circumstances are permissible to allow the General Assembly to temporarily suspend the Virginia Constitution. How is it a constitution at all?